Hello, my sweet class. This is Miss Trees. Hang on, let me turn down this TV. I forgot it was on so loud. Okay, today we're doing poetry. I'm sending you this video from my library. You can see the books behind me on the shelves, and I'm sitting in a nice recliner. I've told y'all about my recliner and how sometimes I take naps in my recliner. And the reason why I'm sending this video to you from my recliner is that we're reading poetry. And poetry is a very relaxing, nice thing to read. And it's very fun to read. It's something that we have to think about. It makes us think. And so I thought it would be fun to read this poetry from my recliner. So I want you to sit down in something nice and comfortable. You can sit on your couch or a chair that's comfortable or on the floor. And I just want you to take a second to find a place to get nice and comfortable before we read our poems. Now, yesterday I could not get this video to download. I don't know why. So I'm making another video of the 4 poems that we're reading. Hopefully you read your 2 poems yesterday, the first 2 poems. But today we're going to read all 4 poems. And then tomorrow you have a short assignment to do. And then you're off on Friday for Good Friday. Yay! And then you're off on Monday because it's the day after Easter. Hopefully you have something nice planned for Easter, and the Easter Bunny is going to hide lots of fun eggs for you, and then you'll be able to hunt them, and they'll have something yummy and wonderful for you when you open them up. Or maybe you hide real Easter eggs and and if you do, you get to decorate them, and that'll be nice and fun too. Some of you may have cascarones, and then you may get glitter and little pieces of circles all in your hair, and that'll be fun too. So we'll just see how Easter goes on Sunday, and y'all can text me, have your parents text me or dojo me and tell me how much fun you had on Easter on Monday after Easter. Okay, so let's get started. We talked about poetry and how and all that bunch of stuff on Monday. So we're going to read the poems together. And the first poem we're going to read is Pete at the Zoo. Now, there's a big picture of an animal. So what do you think this poem is about? Maybe a giraffe? Is that a giraffe? Or maybe a lion? Is that a lion? Now, what have we learned? We've learned to use our pictures to help us realize what the story or the poem or the book is about. So if there's a picture oh, that's a big old gray elephant. If there's a picture of a big gray elephant, Pete is probably a what? An elephant. Okay, so Pete at the zoo. I wonder if the elephant is lonely in its stall, when all the boys and girls are gone, and there's no shout at all, and there's no one to stamp before, no one to note his might. Does he hunch up, as I do, against the dark of night? Now, do you hear the rhyme that's going on in the poem? At the beginning, it had stall and all. Okay, those first 1, 2, 3, 4, after all, and there's no shout at all, that's a stanza. Remember, in stories, we're talking about paragraphs, but in poems, we're talking about stanzas. When you usually have 4 sentences or 4 lines in a stanza, not sentences, I'm sorry, that was wrong. Lines in a stanza. And if you'll notice, is that a period? There's a comma. There's a comma right there, unless my eyes are messed up. There's a comma right there, so it's kind of keeping on. So that's a long sentence, and that's not even the end of the sentence. And that's 4 lines of the poem. So then it says, and there's no one to stand before, no one to note his might. That's the end of a sentence, but it's not the end of the next stanza. Does he hunch up as I do against the dark of night? So now the next stanza starts with, and there's no one to stand before, and then the last line of the stanza is against the dark of night. So how many stanzas do you think, or do you see in that poem? There's 4 in each stanza. So there's 4 on the top of the poem and 4 on the bottom of the poem. So how many stanzas is that? If you guess 2, you're right. Now look at the side of the poem. Right here, there's a little bitty what? 5. So when you're studying poems at your age, they're going to kind of give you numbers of the lines. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 lines in that poem. So they gave you a number 5 to let you know that that's the 5th line in the poem. Okay? Because it's important, because usually they ask you questions and they will say, in line 2, what does the author think about Pete? So they give you the number of the line. So usually they give you a hint of what number one of the lines is. Okay? Here they're telling you, and there's no one to stand before is line 5. Okay? So let's think about Pete. And let's read it again. I wonder if the elephant is lonely in his stall. So do you think he'd be lonely in his stall? What are some things that might make him lonely? Let's think. What makes you lonely? If you're lonely, what are some things that might cause you to be lonely? Would it be maybe if you're by yourself? That kind of makes me lonely. I know when I'm home by myself and my children are off at college and my husband's still at work, I'm lonely because I'm home all by myself. So sometimes if we're by ourselves, that's lonely. And if he is in his stall and he's lonely, maybe he's the only elephant in the stall. So he's lonely. Let's see. When all the boys and girls are gone and there's no shout at all. Do you think he's in a zoo? He says Pete at the zoo, and then he's been put up in his stall, and all the boys and girls are gone. So, when during the day would it be? What would the setting be? If he's been put up in his stall, and all the boys and girls are gone, what do you think? The zoo is probably closed, right? Okay, because all the boys and girls are gone and there's no shout at all. Well, what do you do when you go to the zoo? You're pretty loud because you're like, hey, look at that, look at that. So there's no more shouting going on. It's probably very quiet. No one, and there's no one to stand before, no one to note his might. What does that word mean, might, in that sentence or that line? Strong. Might means strong. Okay? Does he hunch up as I do against the dark of night? Okay? So does he lay? Is he sad? Does he hunch up? Well, that's up to your interpretation. It's what you think. Okay? All right. So against the dark of night. is night. What makes night dark? What color is night? Black. What color is the day? Well, what color is the day? The day's probably full of colors, right? What color is the sky usually during the day? It's blue. So, nighttime is usually black. Okay? So, Pete is at the zoo, and we know now that the setting of the zoo is nighttime. He's in his stall. He's lonely because everybody's gone. Okay? All right. So that's Pete at the zoo. Turn the page. Kezia. Now we're talking about Kezia. I have a secret place to go. Not anyone may know. Go and know. And sometimes when the wind is rough, I cannot get there fast enough. What two words rhyme? Rough and enough. And sometimes when my mother is scolding my big brother, mother and brother, my secret place, it seems to me, is quite the only place to be. Me and be. Now let's check a word real quick. Scolding. Scolding. Look to the right of your page. It has scolding in bold print. Text feature, bold print. Speaking in an angry way. Scolding is another way of how a parent would talk to you if you were in trouble. Okay? That's how they would talk to you if you were in trouble. That's scolding. Now, look at these. These stanzas are different than Pete at the zoo. These stanzas are only 2 lines long. There's only 2 lines in these stanzas. So, how many stanzas are in this poem? Can you count them? Let's see. I count 1, 2, 3, 4. Because remember, I just told you there's only 2 lines in each stanza. So, I have a secret place to go, not anyone may know. So, what would be a secret place for you? Is there a secret place in your house that you go when there's loud noises going on? Is it your room? Maybe you hide somewhere in the house. You may go in the backyard. You may go outside somewhere. But if you're trying to find some quiet place, that's a place where you might go. And sometimes when the wind is rough, I cannot get there fast enough. What does wind mean in there? Does it actually mean wind outside? Or is she saying wind means something else? Like maybe there's some arguing going on in the house. And sometimes when my mother is scolding my big brother, so sometimes when the mother is getting on to her brother or angry with him for something, my secret place, it seems to me, is quite the only place to be. So she's hiding somewhere in her quiet place because that's the only place she can go to get some quiet. Now look at your picture. What's her secret place? Can you see in the picture? She's underneath the table. Now, do you think she's still going to hear? I think she might still hear because she's right there where they're talking. But that's her secret place. So be thinking about a place in your house you can go. Now, we got through that one a lot quicker because we've already practiced with the first poem. Okay? All right, turn the page. This one's a little longer. Rudolph is tired of the city. Now, there's city buildings behind this area, and the boy is chasing some birds, and it looks like there's some cows in the picture. So let's see about Rudolph. These buildings are too close to me. I'd like to push away. I'd like to live in the country and spread my arms all day. I'd like to spread my breath out too, as farmers' sons and daughters do. I'd tend the cows and chickens. I'd do the other chores. Then all the hours left I'd go a spreading out of doors. So where do you think he lives? He probably lives in an urban area and he wants to go live in a rural area. Okay? Because a rural area is on the farm and an urban area is in the city. All right? So look at the stanzas. Now, these stanzas, some, I'm looking at it, some have 4 lines and one has 2 lines. Okay? Now remember, it doesn't have to be equal number of lines in a stanza. You will notice that it is separated by a little space in between the stanzas. Okay, so now look at that and tell me how many stanzas are in this poem. Did you figure it out? 3. There's 3 stanzas in this poem. These buildings are too close to me. I'd like to push away. I'd like to live in the country and spread my arms all day. There's 1 stanza, 4 lines. I'd like to spread my breath out too, as farmers' sons and daughters do. 2 lines. There's another stanza. I tend the cows and chickens. I do the other chores. Then all the hours left I'd go a spreading out of doors. So there you go. He's saying there's the last stanza, 4 lines. So how many stanzas do we have? 3. Now, what does he say he wants to do? He needs to get away from the urban area because he feels closed in. There's buildings really close together. He wants to push them away. He wants to live in the country where he can spread out his arms and feel free. Then he's saying even if he moves to a farm, he's going to do the chores. He's going to tend to the cows and chickens. And then all the hours left after he does his chores, he's going to spread out of doors. So he probably is talking about running around and having a good time. Okay? Now, spread. What does spread mean? Stretching out. You're just stretching out. You're spreading out your arms. Okay? So that's what spreading means. So this poem is kind of cool because we can picture in our minds, we can visualize an urban area and a rural area. So that's really cool. So we kind of know what's going on in this poem. All right, turn the page. Now this poem is about Lyle. So it's probably about a boy named Lyle. Look at the picture. There's a big tree and he's got some luggage there. He's got a backpack and it looks like a suitcase in his hand and he's looking up at a really tall tree. So let's see. Tree won't pack his bag and go. Tree won't go away. In his first and favorite home, Tree shall stay and stay. Once I liked a little home, then I liked another. I've waved goodbye to 7 homes, and so have Pops and Mother. But Tree may stay so stout and straight, and never have to move, as Pops, as Mother, from land he learned to love. Okay, so that's kind of a harder poem for you guys. That's a tougher poem for you guys to think about in 2nd grade. Now, what I want you to do is first, we want to break it down and look at the way the poem's written. How many stanzas do you see? It should be pretty easy. How many lines are in each stanza? How many lines are there? Let's read it again. Tree won't pack his bag and go. Tree won't go away. In his first and favorite home, Tree shall stay and stay. There's 1 stanza. How many lines? 4. Once I liked a little home, then I liked another. I've waved goodbye to 7 homes, and so have Pops and Mother. Another stanza. How many lines? 4. Good. But Tree may stay so stout and straight and never have to move, as Pops and Mother from land he learned to love. Okay? Now, let's think about the rhyming. What's going on? Look at the first stanza. You have away and stay. Then in the second stanza, you have another and mother, so those rhyme. And then you have straight, move, mother, and love. None of those rhyme. So this is a very interesting poem. Like I said, this is a challenging poem for second graders. Now, he's talking about his tree. Once you plant a tree, do they move? Not unless you dig them up, right? Or cut them down for firewood, something like that. So in the first stanza, he's talking about a tree not moving. And in the second stanza, he's talking about once I liked a little home, then I liked another. So in that, what is he saying? He's moved one time. Then it says, I've waved goodbye to 7 homes. What does he mean when he's saying I've waved goodbye to 7 homes? Maybe he's moved 7 times because he's waved goodbye to 7 homes. So that means he's left 7 homes, because what do you do when you leave? You say goodbye. But tree may stay so stout and straight. So what is he saying? The tree's going to stay. And stout means strong. Okay? And never have to move. As Pops, as Mother, from land he learned to love. So he's saying Pops, his mother, and himself have had to move, unlike the tree. Okay? Because the tree is staying on the land that the tree loved. Okay? So, that's a pretty hard poem, but I hope I broke it down for you enough to where you understand. And I'm sure you do, because you guys are so smart. All right. Now tomorrow, we're going to do some check for understanding, and then your parents will take a picture and send it to me, and then we'll be done for the week. Okay? I'm going to send this video to you after my daughter downloads it for me, since she's doing most of my computer work. As y'all know, I need help in the computer situation. So hopefully this one will download, since the other one didn't download. And I will talk to you soon. Make sure you're taking care of your parents and being good boys and girls. I love you. I miss you. And I will see you tomorrow. Okay? Have a good evening. Get some sleep.